So in this restorative, what you'll need is the bolster across the mat. You'll want a couple blankets at the back, and I would form the bottom blanket to be a quarter fold and the top blanket to be, quarter fold and then cross it again, fold it one more time. Now this fold might be substantial enough for your neck. You might end up rolling it a little higher, but what we're gonna start with is a cobbler horizontal chest opener. So we're kind of merging these poses so we have the benefit of the chest circulation and the ribs. So it's kind of a hip rib. I guess there are no ribs in the hips, but they are sort of nearby. So let's get our blocks out and let's place them under the legs. Be near a wall. So we will use the wall about 3/4 of the way in. As you get your belt, depending on your connection with it, you want to make the loop so it's wide enough that when you have it completely connected, bring it overhead and forward over the feet that are sole to sole, and then guide the buckle to an easy reaching place of the upper leg. I could just put it kind of near my hip, and then I tighten it down so that as there's sensation across it's actually not so much my feet, the sensation kind of ridges up into that inner sheath of the leg, right? So it's inside the tibia. And this is what I want to do to help my knee. So I do want my belt to feel like it's on top of my ankle. It's not under my heels, right? It's just above that outer edge of the heel. This is getting too conversational, I think. So when I lower back, I've got enough lift in my blocks for my legs. And if I like to use some sand, I will access that in the beginning so it's nearby when I lower my head back. And I guide the blankets in so it's lifting. And it's not too much of a lift for your neck. This should feel like it's a challenge for your back to adjust, and the part that adjusts is your rib cage that helps your back. So if the sand across the ribs is essentially too much pressure, you might start without the sand and all the same positions apply. Same, sand or no sand. But where the hips are in level to your bolster, I slide mine a little bit away and I just kind of fuss around until there is enough kind of anchoring. I feel like the belt is kind of pulling this lower band of the legs. It's kind of a neat sensation in some way, especially when you have the bolster this way, because there's quite a workout just to get your body assembled. Now, sand or no sand, arms spread open. Head finds its position supported and not too supported, right? If I tilt my head really high, then I start to work on the cervical flexion. I don't think anyone wants to do more of that. So with the shoulders back, the eyes centered in, and with that awareness of feeling the movement chamber of the ribs. And of course, the movement is the breathing cycle. So explore the in and out breath, whether it's through nose and out through nose, or in nose and out through mouth. What might jumpstart you on this is the movement of the belly with the breath. So you immediately correspond with the movement in the ribs. And if the sand starts to get to be too much and it just doesn't help you coordinate the expansive feeling, it feels more flattening, then you just slide it off. Some of us have maybe a different hardiness in this pose with the sand. But this rib cage position with the bolster is enough for me. It feels like enough lift And I want to work on the basics. So feel where the arms are trying to adjust to being wide. And they have this bolster kind of stuck there, so you can't push the elbows to your sides like you normally do in cobbler's pose. Now, with the next few moments, assign the practice into that core chamber. If the belly breathing is getting more subtle, that's okay. The excited breath pattern will probably not continue. It starts that way and then you settle in. Okay, now those of us that have the sand, slide it away and move the right arm just across the chest so you feel that right arm reach towards the left side without a goal, right? There's no, well, there is a goal to reach it to the left, but you're not trying to push the elbow down. So feel that reach to the left. And of course you have the bolster holding your ribs just like so. They're not trying to roll. I don't want you to roll your ribs to the left. Keep that breath continuation. And then change sides. So again, the ribs stay, right? You have to tell the ribs stay, expand, contract with breath. And then left arm comes across and you'll feel, I think you can keep it pretty simple here, unless you do have a challenge and need to roll, but use the bolster to keep you set in your way. And now feel, for me, there's a little difference in my shoulder capacity. So when you feel that arm reach to the right, now notice the shoulder reach, and then take it one more time each side, but very quick. So we're just going to reach across with the right arm to the left. Feel if even the inner arm muscle tightens, and then switch sides, left arm over to the right. Good. Bring the hands together up over the heart, stretch the arms back overhead, and get a feel for the weight of your skull. And this can be a definition in your back that's not necessarily something you're most excited about. So you're working with both the arch of the spine and the arch of the pelvis. Yeah, unless you're a sculpture, this one could take some time, and let's not become sculptures. So experience a few more cycles of breath. You can release the clasp of the hands. And then as you reach the hand down to the buckle, hopefully you can find it and you can stay on your back, and slide the belt. Try to stay supine while you do this, and bring the knees to point up. And I'm going to try to reach down to one of my blocks and add it under the back of the pelvis. So push down to your feet, the legs move into about hips distance, push the block under the back of actually just under your rear is probably your best cue. And then stretch both legs straight down. If you're jammed up against a wall, it could be a little issue. You might have to fluctuate your distancing requirements, but it's nice to have the wall. If I had the wall, I would prefer that, but I don't want to kind of point my toes to push into the wall. So I'm just going to keep reaching down to my heels, and then get a feel of the knees going closer together. You don't want to overlap the knees on top of each other, but close together. And then feel the arms float open. Yeah, I like to visualize as if I had my belt and I was pulling, but I don't want to create that hardship in my hands, in my wrists, and my shoulders. What I want out of it is this chest awareness. If the belly breath seems a little easier to receive, Okay, now slide the left foot in, so the knee is pointing away. And then as you guide the right foot in, you're going to lift the right leg up. You still have your block under you and your bolster, and hook the right foot up over to the left knee and let that right knee motion out. It doesn't go out to the floor. It's not quite like your first pose with the block, but your block is under you. So when you're in this shape, if you're starting to feel like the blanket height is too much, you can always take one away. But I want you to feel like there's enough support that you can kind of restore in the shape. Okay, so the leg stays the same. We're not going to wander it side to side. I'm going to focus on feeling the bottom of my left foot into the ground and the right knee out. Okay, and if there's some inner leg sensation and you're trying to drop the knee farther, see if you can work on stability, not droppability of the leg. Okay, now the left foot, it basically rests, I suppose. We're probably not forcing and gritting our teeth to do that one, but feel how your left foot kind of lands on the floor. Feel what muscles in the leg are doing anything if they are. My right foot's kind of propped up, so however my leg holds that foot is usually all I'm doing. And I want you to try well, actually more than try. Okay, feel that right knee as it moves out. You don't have to palpate it, but it's moving outwards. And then see if you can slide the right foot off of that left knee and feel that right knee move out. So it just kind of stretches with motion. Then shift the knee to point back up towards the ceiling, a little in towards the chest, and then step the right foot down and lift the left foot. We'll do the same thing on the second side, cross the left ankle to the right knee, left knee open. Okay, so we're preparing for some inversions here. So that reverses the flow of gravity in all the bones. So as the left knee is motioning out, you're trying to be equal on the second hip. There may be some differences in your blend of movement, but feel how that left knee is kind of relaxing out. The left foot could be passive. We kind of know that we should keep it flexed for our knee health, but sometimes I forget to keep it flexed. Okay, now right foot is just resting on the pillar of the bones. The right foot is just setting down like you have it. Okay, try to keep the right thigh firm. In fact, it's not a bad idea to put your right hand on the thigh. And then when the left knee comes away, I tend to contract here in my hip flexor when my leg slides out. So I'm trying to keep my right foot stable, my leg stable. Let the left knee stretch open. I know it's maybe hip flexor, you're getting involved, but inner thigh. And then shift that left knee back center, lower the foot, stomp, stomp, walk the feet towards the seat, push down to your feet, slide the block away. And now gets to be interesting. We'll push the top blanket back. And now you're kind of diving, you're going backwards. And you'll reach the hands. Now make sure all your props are kind of close by the sand and the ball, and the block, at least one block. You don't have to have two. And then push the bolster down. I don't push it very far. I usually do too much and then I have to back up. So it's best that you just nudge it down under the upper pelvis. So when I lift up my feet, yeah, that works great. But if I was to shove it farther down, I'd have to go backwards again. You might have to adjust what you're wearing, but that's not the bolster issue. Okay, get a ball or a block, both are fine. Place it between the knees, and thigh muscles have a motion of moving in towards the ball. I mean, not all pieces of it, but the ball is a place to push into. Okay, arms spread open. knees to the right. And maintain that shape for a few more moments. Let the ribs lift, of course, the buttock has to peel up, and you're onto the right hip. Okay, now when you come back in center, have some access to the stomach, kind of reflex. It's kind of a funny idea, but I'm making that up, but stomach reflex. So when I move back in center, okay, I have some abdominal awareness there. So when the knees go left, I want you to get a feel of the waist stretching. Okay, so it goes, when you go left with the knees, the right side of the torso stretches. There's no reflex yet. Reflexing muscles. Not reflexing muscles. Okay, the knees are to the left and you'll feel the right shoulder. Yeah, some of you by now probably have it ingrained that it stays down and it does its job. If it's hard to, it's normal. As if that's a good news. Try to bring the right shoulder down and then use the reflex muscles here that you'll squeeze the ball and move the knees back in center. Okay, and then keep squeezing the ball as you move the knees to the right. And then inhale, center, knees. Squeeze the ball, move the knees to the left. And find a breath ritual that is centering. So I like the idea of inhale, center, belly relaxes. There's the ball, it's expansive. Exhale to the side so I can feel the ribs expand. On the exhale, center, let's do just one more. So if the ball pressure is lightening up because you're fatigued from it, that's a good sign, you're ready to shift. But next time you center into the shape, feel when the feet lift up. Okay, the legs are fully inverted now. And no matter how you look at it, whether you're doing a handstand or a headstand, they're still upside down as much as they would be in that case, right? Not as much height, but they're still upside down. So when we reverse that flow, it is helpful for our whole body circulation, the lymphatic drain, the circulation into the abdomen, the difference of movement in the diaphragm. Keeps things flowing. It has a backward flow right now because there's no prolapse, so you can't lose it. And when you bend through the legs, feel the knees move in towards the chest. If you have a block, be careful so you don't drop it on your face, but the ball is pretty easy to squeeze into. And then remove that, and let's get a belt. And if you can hook it under your right foot, but before you get too perfect about it, the best part of this is you want to buckle up so you already have a loop. If you unbuckled the last time, you got to buckle again. Okay, so hook under the right foot, extend the leg. Okay, straight down with the left leg. So the opposing reach. Now let's do a pretty specific alternating brain float position. So we'll reach for the sand, we'll press it down on the top of the left thigh. And if it's a little squirmy of a sandbag, some days they can be like that, or how your leg responds is it's not quite centered. So I would step the left foot a little bit out so that there's a broadness in the hips. And then when you reach for the belt, you want to make the loop big enough that you can reach it to the back of your head. And if that's too short of a loop, it doesn't work for me that short, then you lengthen it out. Don't make it too long that you don't feel anything, but it's okay if you make it like a very big loop so that your head rests back a little bit on the blanket. That's still helpful for traction. Okay, so balance out the circulation here in the throat. You could even just gently reach around the sides of the throat. And notice if you're gripping in that zone between the ears and in towards the thyroid, parathyroids. And make sure that area is not like gripping. And as the arms go downward, so they're right beside the bolster, you might need to spend some time figuring this one out if you haven't done it for a while. Of course, if your back hurts, a good option would be to bend the left knee and maybe keep the sand on the leg, because that will still support the circulation in your back. It's a weight. It's helpful. It's kind of, it may not feel like a massage to you right now, but any of the places that you have pressure from props is touch, right? It's a connective tissue pressure. So I think that's pretty positive. Yeah, I know it's not exactly touch, but you know, it's comfortable. You don't have to respond to it. It just supports you. It's inanimate. You know, make sure that the right leg feels like it's kind of hooked and the foot's kind of hooked. So it's kind of on edge, right? This position, it's not certain. So the bottom of the pose at the back of the leg, at the top of the leg, sitting bone might feel this. It might feel some connection all the way to that spot. Okay, if you've got the sand, you're going to slide it across the belly, unless it gets hooked on your knee. Okay, and then change sides. The left foot goes up. So we're doing about 2 minutes on each side. Right leg goes down. Again, you can have the belt measurement different on each side. It might need to be if this second leg feels a little bit more tense, it's shaking, and then move the sand to the top of the right thigh. Yeah, even if the first side you felt better with your leg bent, the bottom leg, it's not necessarily the same on the second. So you don't need to predict that, oh, I need to bend my knee right away. You know, feel if there's differences on each side of the back and the side of the hip as well. If it's too much to contemplate, bring yourself into the moment of the shape. Belt is at the occiput, so it's the shelf at the back of your skull. It's the best place for me to describe it. It's bulging out. It's a shelf. It doesn't have to be under the shelf. It might be center or a little bit above the shelf. That's how I place mine. And then I feel mild traction. It's not overbearing on my neck. It's just enough. Okay, and feel where the foot is hooked. If your foot flesh has a different kind of flexibility on the second side, it can come up and you'll notice, oh, this side doesn't feel like it's quite hooked the same way with the foot relaxation. And you likely can notice those things. I know it's all in there, just you and yourself figuring it out sometimes. It can be good. Just slowing down to see what's different on each side. Breathing. A few more breaths here, slowing down. Okay, now slide the sand away. Okay, reach the hands to the back of your head and slide the belt up and hold it with your hands. Slide the right foot in so your head is back on the blanket, and it's probably just one blanket. Right foot comes up into the belt, and I like to do this where my thumb hooks into my belt loop and I kind of stretch my fingers straight back. Some of us, this might not work with your fingers, you might feel like it's uncomfortable. So what else you could do would be to bring your palms together like a prayer position inside the belt loop and then let the thumb stretch back from there. I like that one better. I like that one a little bit better. Just a little itty bitty bit better. Okay. So if the feet are just elevated, right, inverted, is there a way that you can let them lift without pushing into any direction of the feet, not flexing, not exactly pointing, just neutral feet, not being stepped on? Oh my goodness, they're not being stepped on just for right now, huh? For a good amount of class, we don't step on our feet. Okay, now lower the hands down towards the heart and push the feet out, then bring the hands back up and grasp onto the belt with individually with the hands and let the feet push out. Take just a few moments here. If there's no big stretch, that's okay. It's an inversion, so it doesn't require sensation or shaking. There could be. And if you invert quite a bit, it's probably as simple for you as it would be to stand upright, but it's a different flow in the body. Reversing the effects of gravity. So it's a vascular pose, but also a lymphatic, good pose for the immune system, any of these inversions. Okay, now pull pretty firm, like you're pulling your belt towards the navel. You're pulling, pulling. There's resistance with the feet. They're trying to push out. Keep that resistance. Okay, and then slide the feet together. Bring the knees to the chest, take the belt off, or it falls off on the other side. And we are going to move the knees over to the left and roll the waist and slide the knees down. Try to get close to your bolster and shift down. So the key is in getting close to your props. And then let's move into side sage. Okay, so we'll be on our left side. You might use the sand or you might use a ball or a block. So I like to use the sand. The block or ball helps me quite a bit with my knee health. So I find that the reason I use something under my leg is if you observe the pose, if I didn't have it, I'll get my blanket stacked up and a block on the other side of the blankets. Okay, but if you have nothing under the knee and it feels fine, it's okay. But you know, if my knee is down this low, then you can kind of see the shape of the circulation in the ribs kind of it prolapses here. So I want to have a little lift and reach right through this side band. So if my knee is down, I don't get quite the same. Some people probably feel like they get more stretch, I suppose, if they don't have any knee issue, but you want to find things are propped up so that you get some good kind of, I guess hydration would not be the right word for the joints, but you want to find that there's a good amount of mobility. And if you can find the word, let us know. The timer is on now. Whoever finds the word for that first. Okay, so place the sand across the side. It could go lengthening down. It could go horizontal. Probably wherever it stays is what you choose. And the right arm can reach. I think sometimes I don't mind it being on my bolster across. There's no reason you need to exhaust your shoulders. But if you like how it stretches your ribs, that's different. And if it doesn't cause any kind of prickly pressure that's discomforting, then you're fine with that movement overhead. But if it grips up in your neck, not just your shoulder, that's definitely a warning sign to not go this direction. This one is fine, or hand on the bolster. Feel where your head rests into the blankets. And then arrive in this shape on your side sage on the bolster. And feel the movement of the ribs. If there's a chance, you can feel the side wave of the rib cage. You know, it still expands and lifts like a dome. And then it centers back down. And I imagine the field for me is more the initiating movement of the in-breath and the out-breath, still trying to figure out how to move from the out-breath to the next in-breath. So it's always an exercise in kind of companionship with your breath. And you have that, you have a companion, you got your breath companion. Can't see it, but can feel it. So resting the eyes. Now, if your head feels like it's a little lower than you feel the muscles should have, feel if you can let the weight of your head relax. So there's probably some tendencies here to already grip, just because you're still in kind of awake mode. We haven't convinced you that you're going to sleep. So there's probably something that's still awake in the neck. So feel if you can let the weight of your head relax. Okay, now we'll slide the sand away. We're going to move into, kind of feel how the neck is this way down to the left side. Now push the hands down and come around to hands and knees. And you probably have some props to move around, or maybe they'll move on their own away from you. But place the hands, actually let's turn the bolster. Let's turn it so it's reaching towards the blankets. And we'll place the hands under so that the fingers spread out. The knees are, you want to find that healthy width, and likely we each sort that out differently. Some of us will find a little closer is better, some a little farther out, some need a blanket under the knees. But when you band through stretching your back, right, you feel that rib band widen, shin towards chest. Inhale, arch the spine. It's more extend, right? You stretch your chest forward, you move your hips back, but they actually move back and up. Okay, and then round the back so that you create that circulation through your back muscles and your arms. They kind of bounce a bit. If you really slow it down, this motion, well, obviously it's fairly slow, and you round and arch, the hands kind of pump down, and there's this alternating pressure through the arms when you go into cat-cow. Okay, now reach the hips back, stretch forward, let the feet, now my feet are a little close to the wall, but it's going to be fine. And I'm going to lengthen down my torso on the bolster, okay? Bring your hands on top of each other, elbows are wide, that's usually how that formulates. And then if you're lucky enough to have the wall, you can actually lift the knees up and push and use that resistance to stimulate up into the bones of the hip. So just kind of work with that push, that resistance into the legs. If you don't have the wall, you can still have your toes under and work with that. It's probably a little more challenging because the wall is kind of an easy messenger to what you're doing. But forehead down, try to press it into the hands just like you were pressing your side of your head in the last pose. Okay, breathing, pressing into the bolster. Okay, now if you have your knees up, just keep them up. Try to. Just give them a little bit of oomph, right? Try to keep the knees lifted. Slide the hands down so they're under the shoulders, elbows are bending. Locust pose, so you're lifting up from cobra, and then you'll stretch your arms straight back besides the legs. Yeah, be kind to how your body awareness moves. Your shoulders might drop. It's not the easiest deep breath to work with when you're pushing this way into the lungs, right? You're resisting. So feel where the arms are reaching. Okay, and then let the elbows bend back. I think this is grasshopper actually, because my hands land back down. Lower the knees, and then lift up the chest by pushing into the hands to lift up. Shoulders center. Feel the weight of the hips move into the bolster. Yeah, you don't have to do like a full up dog where your legs are straight. This one only works for me with my knees bent because of the wall. And then push back to table. Take a moment when the knees shift in towards the bolster, the toes turn under, feet hold legs hips distance, hands pressed, and feel if you can actually move the shoulders back. Actually, it isn't really exactly shoulder, is it? It's this upper back plate of the arm that you're trying to motion back, and lift up the knees and then press the floor away. Okay, so inverting the body once again with the hips lifting, but this time the heels are down. It is an inversion, right? Because your head is down below the heart. Okay, you might be right up against a wall, which could be delightfully helpful. Push the floor away. Stretch the calves. Okay, if stillness isn't helpful, you feel like you need to kind of massage out that stretch, you can alternate bending the knees. Okay, now lower down the knees and let's turn the bolster across. Okay, all that circulation into your face feels good. And let's get ready for side sage on the right hip next to the bolster. The right arm between the ball maybe or the block inside the left leg. And then add some weight to the side. Why are we doing this weight? Right, to stimulate the breathing muscles. But it's also a grounding, and it creates traction for the connective tissue. So it's that touch factor, the deep pressure touch sensation. And then let the left arm find its way of movement, whether it flows around, whether it touches across or overhead. And feel where the weight of your body leans into the props. Breathing slow. Exhaling completely. Do the best your breath can with fullness, right? With the feeling of the body experiencing the breath, not like your face or tension in the face when you breathe. Now, before we come out, I want you to work with the experience of the side that's touching down on the props. Like you're trying to move the breath in that area. The breath on the left side is pretty obvious because it's the exposed side. But the underside, or kind of the inside, it probably doesn't really activate much. It just kind of like gives up, I think, in some ways when you're in this position. So use the position to kind of resuscitate these areas that are, you know, maybe weak links, perhaps not, but the rib expansion, the circulation back into the lower sheath of the back and the kidneys, lower back waistline. Yeah, this waistline area is quite interesting where we're going. So, you know, if this side work is the only way that you can feel it stretch, when you sit upright, it's hard to feel it lift. Just notice what you receive from this positioning, and then slide the sand away. And yeah, let's motion slow. So you could open the chest towards the ceiling, kind of feel, make sure your neck is adapting to the weight of your head. Sometimes this kind of gets so tight, it's hard to get the weight of the head to stretch it. Okay. And then roll to the right and use the arms to help you come up, not just the hands. And then sit up onto the bolster. And let's take a moment where we set up our blocks in the front area so they go forward. You got your blankets tucked in. I think we're going to need them both behind our bolster. And if you're distant from the front of your mat, like quite a bit, you're on the back, or the mat is only a few, like a foot behind you, scoot into the center. Not so far forward you hit the wall if you have that there. But when you sit, can you sit kind of, you're toward the back of the bolster. You don't want to sit in the front because we don't want to flop down. But take a right leg, only one right leg you got. You're going to move it out. So if I move my leg out to the right, it stimulates the hip a bit, right? And my leg. So when I pull the left foot in towards the bolster, I try to adapt so that my sitting bones, the flesh under is kind of fluffed out. Okay, you've probably heard of that. Like reach under, fluff it out. And then a ball under the left knee or a block is really helpful. The block is fine, but you might need something under your left knee. If the knee doesn't naturally touch the floor, it needs something. It needs something under it. Could be towels, but take a sand to the left thigh or a bag of rice. I was eyeing some bags of rice yesterday, so many kinds. And I was filling and lifting them up. Like, would this be a good sandbag? Would this be a good, kind of option for one? I didn't come around with any decision what would have been the best one. Okay, so then you've got a big loop and reach it under the right foot, and let's have it so that we can just hold it with the hand. Don't put it behind you. Just have it on the inside. And this might be fun. So if it's already looped up, just leave that. As I mentioned, however you find it is fine. But feel when you shift your ribs to the left. So my right leg is in my peripheral vision. I know it's over there, but I shift my ribs left. And then I reach the right hand down for the belt. I know it's there. I'm not pretending it's not, but I don't want to stare at it. So I bend the right elbow, and it's going to be on the top of the leg or the inside, not the back of the leg, or the right side. So, be as friendly as you can to your waist and your neck. So you might now be able to see that leg again, but feel this left side carefully stretch. So this is important. If you have to back up, you can come back up and find that you're reaching your focus left over the left leg and then bending and leaning. And you gotta go back to basics. You gotta go back to yoga kindergarten. There's an idea. We could have a whole yoga kindergarten. Okay, so pull and feel with the right amount of pull. So when I pull with right arm, I feel my left side. So my left arm can reach around my back, so my palm is open. The top of my hand is on my right side of my back, kind of near the kidney area. And instead of trying to deeply massage that area, I just rested kind of deep into it. And then when I feel the side of the waist stretch, take a few more moments, whether your head is tilted or your head is turning towards the right leg with your face downwards. Breathe. Now, try to keep that necessary energy of the arm holding the belt. Okay, so when I slide my right hand on the belt and I come up, I'm trying to find both balance of pulling and then sitting up. I could get better. Okay, so it's just finding that like this is a cable and then you're trying to come up so that the core rod is strong. That's the idea is I'm elevated and then I turn left and let go of the belt, right hand to left leg, and then feel that cross fiber of the ribs. Very subtle. So when you turn, you can feel that right foot flexing. Maybe it doesn't do too much flexing. It could just be not rolling in. That would be fine. But when you rotate, you can feel the movement of the breath. And just stay with that. We're pretty basic here. We're kindergartners. Okay, now when you come forward, bring the body line back to center, and then take the belt off the right foot, and the leg will go in, so it'll cross in front of the left. But I would be, fairly careful about the cross fibers of the knees. So my left knee's done enough. This is enough bending. This is probably plenty of it, plenty of juicing it up. So when you lean forward, get a couple blocks. Use them, even if you're massively mobile, you can touch the ground. Use them because you want to keep this side body lifting when you go forward. I know it may be that it rounds, but feel the ribs lift, okay? I would like that thumb under the armpit, kind of lifting up version. Gives me some insight into that motion. And then as I lean forward, I don't know if I like the sand on this leg. This wouldn't be a good, the exact version you should do. So your sand should be, may as well correct ourselves when we know it's wrong. Sand goes on the right thigh when your right leg is forward and you're going to a forward bend. Okay. Better to correct ourselves on this moment before going too much further. So when you're forward, my legs are not in a box position. They're kind of more as spread out as I can make them. So my knees have enough mobility, but also, I guess you could say tranquility too. As you lean forward, see if you can reach the blocks a little farther front, straight in front. Okay, a little bit of lift out of the back, so there's an extension, an arch. Okay, now hands onto either the hips. It's kind of hard to really hold your hips this position. It's a little tricky. And I want you to make a little bit of circle. So it's not a huge circling pattern, but you hold onto the hips and you're circling, and your rotation can go either direction, to be honest. You're just working with the ribs in mobility. I think both directions would be wise. Okay, so you loosen up now when you try to move so the ribs shift side to side. Right, as if you had, well, I know you can't put the ball in the center, but your centerpiece of the body is tone. And then center it, step the left foot out, reach it out, don't step it out, stretch it out. Take the ball to the right knee. So now the right foot is towards the left leg or towards the bolster. Do what works for you. Some of us, the right foot is touching the left leg. Some of us, the right foot is touching the bolster. This to me doesn't seem like a good idea for my knee to jam it in and then have the bones pressing. So I like to have the ball on the underside of that right leg, catch it, push into it, get my belt, and off we go. Okay, so take your belt under your left foot, reach it, scoop it up with the left hand, hold, and then turn to the right. Okay, so feel that presence of the waist. Elbow bends, left side, and then turn. So you might even put your right hand on the back of the waist, and it's low waist. It's as low as the waist goes. There is an end range. And if your body can take that turn, feel the right shoulder shift back. The waist expands. And it's just fine if you have your hand relaxing behind you, if you have your right arm stretching up and over. But you decide. But feel that you're pulling and guiding yourself towards the left. And if there's a little bit of a quandary in this lower back kind of bay, and you're not so sure if it's the exact position for your best experience in the long run, right? You might start to come out of it pretty soon. So when you lift up, what's lifting is, you have to have some motivation, right, to get upright. But when you turn to the right, you could stay with holding the belt. Okay, you've got to resist it with the left foot, push away, and then let go of it, reach the left hand to the right knee, and then you get a little more of that belly turn, right? It's like abdominal pattern moves and twists, and the left hand touches that right side. Now, if the ball doesn't seem to be nabbed under the knee anymore because you kind of grip onto the leg, see if you can let the leg rest back into the ball or the block. Okay. What we don't want at all on this one is that you try to scatter your right arm back and you kind of lean. Okay, there's a big X on the screen for that one. So it's upright, it's rotated, and now I keep losing my ball support because I'm trying to pull my knee so much. So what I need to work on is my hip flexor on this left leg, trying to release it. My right leg has the sand on it. And then when I'm turning, less is more, right? So work on that inner tube, your inner tube. Okay, breathe. Okay, turn back forward, take the sand over to the left leg, slide the left foot in out of that belt, cross it, so a simple cross-legged position. And then you can use the ball if you already have it under one of the legs. This left leg's probably pretty high up now. And then lean forward. And the hands could be on the hips. They could be reaching back on the bolster. You lean front. I suppose you could even use those blankets, huh, and kind of pull. But as the hands move onto the blocks, is where we're aiming. You'll let the spine feel its natural arch. So we're better off with the natural arch, which might for some of us feel like it's back pressure. That's true. It feels a little bit like back pressure. It's better to be there than to be here, right, to round. So when you're reaching out of the torso, you know, these muscles, right, you want to use your muscles in the side of the back. You don't want anything artificial to hold that up. So if you don't have anything holding it up inside the body that's not natural, then stay with that as long as you can. Keep the lift. I'm teaching chair yoga now, so I'm learning about all kinds of body things in 80s and 90s. And spine stuff, and so I'm really focusing on these basic things. It could become kind of boring. Okay, but kindergarten, good things. Good things come with patience. Okay. So if the arms feel a little loaded with pressure, that's natural that you're going to build this up in the back of the upper arm. Okay, but when we come out, this time we're going to actually get towards hands and knees work at the wall. So come on up to sitting. Move your blocks. They should stay next to your mat because we'll use them right away. And then I think what would be helpful is to uncross the legs. If you want to do a little bit of stretch them both out, do some supportment. So I would use the hand slap on the side, upper, just above the knees, nothing on the knees, and maybe lower. And a little bit of zing on the legs, leg zing. And then turn to, you can keep doing that if you like. Turn around so that your bolster is on the side. Okay. Blanket is under your knees. Just one. Okay. At the most, just one. If you don't use a blanket, that's okay. Your other blanket is off to the side. And let's add some blocks right away. Okay. So we'll gather in our focus so that we have our hands on the blocks on the second setting. They could go flat. That would be a lot of work. And the second setting is pretty stable. Have your feet at the wall. And then when you do launch into this first positioning of the leg, I want you to feel that the knees move closer together so the spine is centering, but it's stretching away from the wall, right? Your spine stretches straight towards the center of your space. So feel the feet push. Now I just feel the balls of my feet push, and that could be my wall, right? What it has on the base. So yours might be a little different. You might feel your whole foot, but I want you to work with feeling how the lower back is so supported here. And then when you step forward with the right foot, you might be like, I can't quite get it there. You might need your block a little higher to get it forward. There's a couple ways to get there, but when you step into the right foot, you're there. You got a right foot. Lean into that right leg lunge. Stretch so far forward that now that hold in your back is kind of gone. Not a hole, but a hold. Okay. It goes deeper in the back. And now it pushes down to the left hip flexor. So feel the left foot push into the wall, lift the knee, adjust so that you're comfortable. Now for me, I adjust so my heel is up at the wall, but the ball of the foot is pressing the floor, right? So I don't have my whole foot at the wall, just the heel. And now as I adjust that right knee forward, try to get your waist towards the leg. It's okay if it's not. It's totally fine if it's not. If you put your blocks a little higher, that might be a nice adaptation for that strength in your back. Okay. And then balance the motion of the hips. So if you look down and back towards your upper legs, clearly the hips they're not levelized, but you don't want this right rear sticking out, nor the left side. Okay. So let's slide the right foot closer in towards the space between your blocks. Turn the left foot out. So the side of that left foot is against the wall. And this is good to do, even if you're wanting to just lay on your props today. Work on this restoration, right? This work. So I'll take my right hand on my block. It's as high as it'll go. Stretch the left arm open and lift the arm towards the ceiling or the arm on the side. Okay? So you're using your bones as a bit of a prop here for your center. Turn the chest towards the left. Remember, it's only temporary, but feel how this right hip now is not going to go out, right? It's going to stay intact, but push into the right foot and then come up. Right hand away, stretches to the center of the room, left hand to the wall. Feel the right knee stretch forward, away from the wall, right? So that thigh is feeling pretty toned. Good, good. So lower the right hand down to the block, left hand comes down to the next side. Lift the back heel, step the left foot forward to the right, use both blocks in front of you to help your back. Now this is obvious that we use the height so that it's easier on our back. So it's not a bad idea, even if you're mobile, you've got a lot of flexibility and you can put your chest on your legs, but I want to work on my circulation in my back and my arms. Okay, so feet about hips distance, knees bend, stretch your arms forward, come down up, so all the way up. Where are we going, up or down? Lift your arms, push down into your feet, hands open, and then fold back forward. This time you can hold the legs, you can hold your elbows, you can hold the blocks, okay? So you decide, but keep in mind if it's flexibility that you're driven towards, like you know, that you kind of want to rest. Some of us that are pretty mobile use the flexibility to rest. So if I hold my elbows, I get a nice amount of spread in my upper ribs, upper lungs, kind of pulls the breathing muscles. Okay, so you choose. And hands on the blocks, if that just is better on your back muscles, if it feels better, it's probably better. Okay. Feel a little bend of the knees. If you can make it an inversion, head below the heart. Head release. Okay, now hands come back up. Use the blocks beside you to step the right foot back. Keep the heel lifting. So we're going a little different direction on this side, okay? So I want you to pivot the back heel so the foot turns out. The left hand is on a high block besides the left foot, and then turn open to the right. We're already warmed up enough. I think we can manage some of this. So if your knee is kind of pressing back, you want to feel that there's a good angle in that left leg. So you really are bending it and the inner thigh stretches. Yeah, this is a funny way to stretch the adductor because most of us in restorative classes, we stretch it kind of passively, or we think we are, but it still is tight, you know? But this is an interesting way to work with that adductor. So open. Now use that support of your left foot. You really need it here. So if you feel like you're going to go into the splits, back up, bring your hand down, bring your foot in. You don't want to fall down. So feel the arm up and then push into your left foot to come up. Left arm reaches, and you can go up with the arm. You could go straight out to the center above the left leg. Right hand pushes into the wall. You can bend your elbow and keep the chest open. Yeah. Now feel when that left knee is in that bend and the right foot is pressing on the floor. That's tricky because I could feel the wall as well. And then lean, now careful on the knee. So I find I do a little too much front load on my knee sometimes on this one. So I have to kind of feel, okay, my inner thigh, don't have any issues there, right, with strain. The knee maybe has more issue because of the joint. So feel when you lean down that you're stretching this inner thigh and try to let that knee move a little bit back. Be careful, you don't want to do anything completely out of place, but use the stretch on the inner leg. Then lower the left and right hand down. Back heel lifts up, use the wall, and then start to go into that lunge. So the left foot's going to creep forward. Use your toe strengthening skills. Just scoot it forward. And then start to lower that back knee. Now, some of you might want to keep it up off the blanket. Some are going to go, oh no, I'm going to the blanket. It's good. So if you're going to go down to the blanket support, use it and feel that stretch from the front of the right hip down to the, I mean, to be honest, I felt mostly in the upper to the middle of the front of the leg, not very close to the knee because it's tense there. So work with that stretch. And then as you come back, we're going to go into that area. So let's move our blocks to the side. Okay, slide yourself back so you'll push your blanket away. And have the fringes on the other side. Okay, get a bolster next to your wall flat. And then bring your feet on top, scoot your seat towards the bolster. Now, wait a minute here. We don't want to get too close. I'll take that back. So I can feel my feet on the bolster. Bolster's next to the wall. Okay. Now, when you lift your hips up, I want you to, we're getting this hip flexor band. So clearly that's an area, when we lift up our hips, we're going to have two blocks, the second height, just the second. Slide them in on each side under the pelvis. You've done some of this pattern with your bolster, but some schools have thought really like you to use the block and not the bolster. There's a different definition in the sacrum. I think it's just a touch factor. The bones don't really absorb around the blocks like they do the bolster. So there's probably some fact in that, I think. Okay, I haven't seen any fact finding, but it feels like it's good. Now I'm trying to stretch my legs straight down so the feet push into the wall. That's why I don't want you too close to the wall. So this front zone opens. We're going to take the support of the sand at the top of the thigh. If you're feeling like, I don't know if I can meet the demands of this pose with sand too, then pass on it. But the shoulders are down and in. The blanket could be there or not. And if you like the cushion of it, let's use it. But you don't want it so high that you're starting to really flex your neck and creating more of the roundness in the upper spine. Even though it seems like the neck might not be a big deal, it's a huge thing, right? For our success with our backstory, I think. So the feet get close together, close. The knees can only get so close to the feet. And then feel where you land in your shape. Maybe close your eyes. We're going to use the bolster like this all the way through the end. So we'll let it just stay there. As you can feel how the front of the legs is gradually releasing. And if you decide to take your feet apart, just to experiment with the sensation drift in the legs, go for it. And then sometimes you try that and you go back to the prim and proper version. If this doesn't work for you with the back of the knees, or you're feeling too much knee pressure, you can always bend your knees, but put your feet on the floor if you do. Okay, that might be better for some of us. So give a few more moments. Really work on that front. Okay, you don't have to grip in your buttock muscles at all on this one because you got the blocks. Okay, now shoulders can always go further under. That's just the way it is for these poses. Okay, but the shape of the moving shape of the breath, I think, is pretty interesting. Okay, so when you slide the feet in on the edge of the bolster, you're going to move the sand, and we'll take a counter pose, an IT band stretch. So I want you to feel where your feet are on the bolster. Push. Okay, let the pushing be a little more intense. And then find a way that you can move your upper back towards the shoulders to press. And then lift the hips just a tiny bit to slide the block out. Okay, the blocks. Slide the spine, let it lower down. Okay, right leg crosses over left leg. Reach for your blanket. If it's not under your head, make sure it is. And let the knees go right. It's a counter pose. It's an IT band stretch. For some of this might be really intense. So you might use the ball under the right upper thigh. So it would be high up on the side of the right thigh, not too low. If you go too low towards the, just above the knee, it's almost just not enough help. So I like the ball or the block here. They both will work pretty equally, I think. And no sand on this one. It's just too severe on the knee. If you add sand, it's a pure pressure right through the side fascia there. And it's pretty thin stream of fascia there, even though it seems like, but it is pretty thin. That's below the trunk of the upper leg down towards the knee. And that stuff on the side can be so tight. Okay, so instead of trying to push it down, I'm just using gravity and time. Because time is gravity, or maybe not, I'm not sure. Exploring the thoughts about it. Okay, now notice the knees going right. They're both going that way. Okay, so your waist is centered. Now, when you slide the right knee over to the right side off of the left leg, I want you to be real careful to hook that right foot to the left knee like you did in the beginning. Just give it a moment there, just a moment. Uncross. Left foot, actually left leg, so I'm gonna get closer to the wall. Left leg over the right, simple, and then use the ball in the very beginning. You want it there to help you, so you don't push down too far. Okay, so if I do go without, I feel okay with it, but it just seems too advanced, right? I don't know if it actually gentle is the new advanced, right? So you want to find something that you can have some lifespan with over time for practice. Okay, so the ribs are centered, the breath is, it's kind of mid-range on this one because it's so much intensity on the leg that taking a lengthy breath might be challenging on this. Try to stay with the program. We're almost to the last pose. We're getting there. It'll be worth it. Now, where your body weight is on the hip, if you close your eyes, you can feel how the right hip is lifted. The pulling pattern on the side of the leg. Doesn't take much to stretch it. All you need is 2 legs. And then bring the knees in center, slide the left foot up onto that right knee. And that works better for me this time, is to just let the leg naturally move around and open. Now, there's not enough inversion here to find that completion. I think it's really good to get that circulation at the end, even if it's legs up on the bolster. If you don't want to go legs up the wall, stack up some blocks under your bolster and then a blanket on top for a bolster bench. And those of you that are comfortable with the wall, you'll bring the knees into the chest here. Now you can roll forward or you can roll to the side. And then when you come up to sit to the bolster, you're going the other way. So you'll pull in your blanket in the middle, well, actually closer to the bolster than you think. And if you want to use your sand on your feet, grab it so it's close to you, very close. And then sit to the bolster on top, as close to the wall as you can go. So you want to push your, it's more of I'm pushing my sitting bones, not my back, because this isn't going to get me upside down. So I've got to lean forward. It's kind of crawl. What typical version I see with the Lassiter family on this one has been like this kneeling position to the side, but not many of us can get the knees over here and then sit in seiza. It's kind of hard to sit like that in that squat. So it's full kneeling position. So I find that if I just sit and my seat is at the wall and then I lean into my left hip, then I'm right on the edge of the bolster. and the other side flaps up. And then I roll and lift up my legs. Okay. So if you can sit in that kneeling position perfectly next to the bolster and then go upside down, I guess when you're in this pose, it will heal your knees anyway from what you just do sitting like that. By the end of the pose, you won't notice it anymore, but get somewhat semi-close. You don't have to be touching the wall perfectly. Have a blanket under your head. I have my other blanket close enough. Get your blankies and then guide the sand so that it is on the lower belly, and then the knees can shift off the wall and the knees can bend, and then reach your sand to the feet and then let the feet take over and push it up. Okay, so the waist is, if you're not entirely to the wall, I think you sense some frustration. I think some people do that. They sense frustration. So what I would do is just push my bolster a little bit away from the wall. And then usually my legs make contact. My seat is a little closer. This little spacing. Okay, so blanket, you can also do your version. Blanket is on torso. So you have some little bit of weight here. It's very mild, but it's weight. And it's also that contact around the skin, that coverage, and that feeling of being kind of swaddled. Okay, sense where the arms are downwards below the heart. And that ritual of the movement of the breath. And feel where it is in motion. Right? Breath is motion. You really feel where it moves inside. And what makes contact with the ground. Your hips are up, your shoulders are back. You might roll your head a little side to side. And then feel that direct center and scan that center of gravity where there's lift of the pelvis, right? Center of gravity is our pelvis. And practice relaxing that lower core with the breath. That could be by inhaling. And it can also just be on the props. You don't necessarily have to change your ways. You could use the props to support you, and those ways might change after the fact. So feeling that expansiveness in the body. Returning it back to a place of balance from the whole experience of class. And before you exit the pose, just notice if your tailbone has pressure or if it's just a little, it just feels like it's neutral, it's not efforting. Sometimes it's nice to do this without efforting the tailbone, just to let it, again, just letting the props support you. See what happens when you just use that little lift, absorbing the circulation change. Right, the weather in the body changes, right? When you're upside down, it does affect your your lymphatic system, your breathing muscles entirely. Your organs get to rest from their downward pull with gravity during the day. So the final few moments here. And part of those moments are transition. So if you have your sand on your feet, you would shift the feet first from the wall, straight up vertical. Most likely we can't get the sand off with our feet vertical. We have to bend them, not the feet, but the knees. And of course, this is a big pressure in my digestive tract with my blanket, but I'll do it. Slide the sand off your feet and then feel where the feet are at the wall. Maybe this is a little bit of a back somersault feeling, but if this is all you get to do a backward somersault, this is good, right, for the diaphragm. So just here with the feet up. So let's say you're on the bolster without, you're not at the wall, you still get that transfer of circulation in the breathing muscles. Okay, slide anything off of the torso and then roll to any side you want to go, whatever side is natural. You only got two. So roll to the side, push, and then come on up and take a seat on your bolster next to the wall, crossing at the legs, however the bones will have their crossing, but where the spine is, the spine is what's behind the heart. So that's kind of something I like to complete the practice with, is that focus. Slide the hands and merge them in front of the heart, either touching onto the body or palm to palm. And feel the gathering of awareness to closing your practice, setting your intention to breathe in wellness from practice, but also to experiment with the idea of others in your practice, in your field of energy, somewhere out there, distant from your home, but doing this right now with you. So inhaling and with exhalation, bowing into the space behind.